my name is Lucy. Welcome back to my channel. I share videos on the topic of long COVID, chronic fatigue syndrome and mind-body approaches that can be helpful with those conditions. So today's video is a follow-on from last week's video, and I'm talking about different tools and techniques and things you can do to help you get out of survival mode. I'm not a medical professional. This isn't medical or mental health advice. I'm just sharing things that have helped me. So I suppose just to begin, because the last video I did, I went through the signs of being in survival mode. And I didn't really explain why it's important for us not to be in survival mode. And some people will understand why this is, but I just wanted to quickly explain it as well, just in case I was sort of missing a piece here. So if we're in survival mode, our nervous system is not in its most relaxed state, and it doesn't help with us feeling calm and feeling good. So it can mean that we're more likely to pay attention to perceived danger or perceived threat. It might be that we're more likely to get anxious and have difficult emotions due to our situation. It might be that we feel like we can't cope when being optimistic and feeling hopeful is important in order to get better. So if you relate to some of the signs that I went through in the last video about being stuck in survival mode or being in survival mode, it might be helpful for you to think about different ways that you can try to get out of survival mode so that your body has the best chance of relaxing, which will hopefully then help with symptoms. So if you're trying to figure out what it feels like not to be in survival mode, you could go through my last video and basically just think about what the opposite is of all of the different signs that I mentioned. But very briefly, I suppose to not be in survival mode would mean that you feel safe, you feel grounded, you feel as though you can slow down and take your time with doing activities, that you don't need to be busy all day long, that you can move forward with activities without too much anxiety or procrastination or feeling as though there's no point in doing that particular thing. And when I say activity, I mean anything. I mean talking to a friend or replying to a message, not just physical activity. You feel as though you can cope, and you will feel that your body is relaxed. So if your body is really, really tense and tight or feeling uncomfortable all of the time, chances are you're probably in some form of survival mode. And survival mode can, as I said in the last video, look different for different people. So it can be more of a shutdown mode where you feel more depressed, or you feel really exhausted, or you feel as though you can't really face the world, you can't really face things, you want to distract yourself. Or it can be more of an anxious state where you feel like you need to be busy all of the time, or as though you need to prepare for something bad happening, or you might feel as though your mind is very active all of the time and it's hard to slow it down. It can also show up in terms of people pleasing. So paying more attention to other people than yourself. So that was one thing I didn't mention last time when I was going through all of the signs. If you notice that you pay more attention to others, whether that's caring for others, whether that's trying to please others and make sure everyone else is okay, that can also be a sign that you're preoccupied and in more of a survival mode, and a mode that's trying to achieve something by doing external activities rather than being okay and feeling okay in yourself. So not being in a survival mode would mean that you don't feel the need to achieve, you don't feel the need to please others, you don't feel the need to prove yourself in some way to show that you're worthy or to show that you are valuable. So it is linked to self-esteem, but also survival mode can be generated due to a difficult situation that you might be in, like having a long-term health condition, or it could be related to your upbringing and just how you learned to cope, that you learned that the way to manage in your day-to-day life was by worrying, or was by trying to achieve things and fix things and do things on an ongoing basis rather than being able to relax. And I suppose being in survival mode is not binary. It's not the case that you're either in survival mode or you're not in survival mode. There is a spectrum. And as I said in the last video as well, it might be that you're more in survival mode at particular times in your life, particular times of the week, particular times of the day. But for some people, they can sort of get stuck in survival mode, and where their nervous system is not regulated in the way that would help them feel calm and safe and grounded and have that general feeling of okayness in life. So the things that I'm going to suggest that can help with being in survival mode, one thing that's important to consider before I go through this list of different things is, if you're trying these things, really try to figure out if they're helping or not. Because I think, especially with some exercises like meditation and breathing techniques and other bottom-up approaches, people can do them on a regular basis and they might be helpful to some extent, but they might not really be making a big difference. And if that's the case, you might need to try a different approach. I'm not saying don't do these exercises, because I think these are good to do, but I think be intentional and be conscious about how much they're helping you, and try to figure out if they're not helping you, why might that be, and what else can you try. And one way of doing that is to measure your level of anxiety or stress or the feeling of dysregulation before you do one of these exercises and after you do one of these exercises, and has it improved? Or on a day-to-day basis, do you feel like you're moving out of a survival mode and you're moving into a feeling of being grounded and safe in your body? Or are these just short-term fixes? And a short-term fix doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but I think it's just worth being aware of whether it is or not, or whether it's actually moving the needle towards helping you on the long-term basis. So bottom-up approaches start with the body. So breathing exercises, many people will have come across the suggestion of doing breathing exercises if they have long COVID or chronic fatigue syndrome. And breathing exercises, essentially, they're going to slow down your breathing, which is giving your body the message that you are safe. Because if you're breathing slowly, then you're not breathing fast. And if you're breathing fast, there's a sense that you might be breathing fast for a reason. So your body would be interpreting you breathing fast as a sign that it needs to run or fight or flee from a dangerous situation. And by slowing your breathing, it's giving your body the message that I am safe, I'm okay. And there's so many different breathing exercises that you can try, and essentially elongating the breath. So when you're starting a breathing exercise, one thing that can be helpful to think about is to notice the rate at which your breath is before you start the breathing exercise. A lot of breathing exercises go through breathing in for a count of 6, breathing out for a count of 6, or whatever it might be. Just make sure that is elongating your breath rather than shortening it, because the idea is to be taking deeper breaths and using diaphragmatic breathing, where you're breathing into your stomach, rather than shallow breathing where you're maybe breathing into your chest. There's lots of information out there on breathing exercises, so I'm not going to go on about them, but these could be helpful to do on a regular basis if you notice that you are in a state of survival mode and that you need to start shifting your body into feeling more safe and grounded. Meditation is another good tool to use for moving out of survival mode. So with meditation, we can become a little bit mindless, where we decide we're going to meditate on a regular basis. But we might be in survival mode. We meditate, we feel a bit better, and then we stop. Once we've stopped meditating, we're pretty quickly back into survival mode again. And whilst it might have been a reprieve or a break from being in survival mode, you haven't carried through the mindful, slow, observing approach that meditation brings into your day-to-day life. So some meditation exercises that I like are 3-minute meditations or 5-minute meditations, where you try to do them 3 or 4 times a day. And I'll link a video below of a 3-minute meditation, and they're very, very short. And essentially you're paying attention to the breath, you might be paying attention to sound, but you're slowing down and allowing yourself to be in your body. Because a lot of being in survival mode is sort of not paying attention to the body, or being stuck in our head and thinking a lot or doing a lot. So meditation can be a really good way of slowing down if you are someone who is always on the go, or feeling anxious, or feeling the need to research all of the time, or have a busy mind all of the time. Another bottom-up approach could be a grounding exercise. So this is not necessarily similar to meditation, but not meditation. So where you are really noticing, you might be sitting with your feet on the floor, or it might even be better if you had your feet on the ground outside. And whether you're standing or you're sitting or you're lying, you want to really notice the weight of your body and start to kind of feel into the senses that are around you. So whether that's the heaviness of your body, whether it's the feeling of the ground underneath your feet, whether it's the smells or the sounds around you. It might just be the exercise of doing nothing. So you're not necessarily doing a guided meditation. You're just tuning in to what's around you. And this can be quite similar to orienting exercises. So an orienting exercise is where you are using your eyes to try and bring yourself back to your environment and the present moment. So you might look at a tree in the distance, and you might then look at something closer to you, like a lamp or something that's right beside you. And you might just do this 5 or 10 times, where you're looking into the distance and then you're looking at something close to you, and maybe feeling into the body as well. So this can be helpful just because we are changing our fixation in terms of our vision. So we are using our eyes in a slightly different way, and we are noticing what's around us and the light that's around us, and it's bringing us back into our environment and where we are. And that could be helpful when someone is feeling really, really anxious and they want to start to feel a bit steadier and a bit calmer. And I'm sure you can find more information on those types of exercises as well elsewhere. There's also some vagus nerve exercises which involve putting your hands behind your head and holding your gaze to the left, and just continuing to look at your elbow that's on the left hand side. And you could do this for about a minute, or you might notice that you begin to yawn or that you sigh. And it can just help shift our body into a ventral vagal state, or a more grounded, connected state. And we do the same on the other side. There's also other vagus nerve exercises that you could try, like gargling or singing. If you Google that, you'll probably come up with a few different ones that you can try. Another bottom-up approach, noticing physical sensations of anger. So sometimes repressing emotions can get us caught in this state of being in a survival mode. And anger is one of the emotions that sometimes people are not really in touch with. So if you rarely can get in touch with anger, it might be helpful to try and feel into your body and just notice if there's any anger in your body, or imagine a scenario where you could be angry, or ask yourself a question like, if I was angry, where would I feel it in my body? How would it come up? Would it be jittery? Would it be a feeling of tension? Would it be something else? And after noticing this anger, you could write about it. You could, if you have enough energy, you could try and do something physical whilst you're focusing on that, allowing yourself to feel that, allowing that energy to be in your body. So some of the benefits of bottom-up approaches is that they can help us get more in touch with the body and really notice what's going on for us physically, and start to become a bit more embodied and notice our gut feelings, notice if there's emotions that are in the body that we weren't aware of before, just to have more awareness of being grounded and being less in our head can be really helpful. But I think also there are a lot of people who have chronic fatigue syndrome or long COVID who are regularly doing these bottom-up approaches like meditation, breathing exercises, yoga nidra, and things on a day-to-day basis. And if those are helping, even to some extent, even just for 5 minutes, I think it's worth doing them. But it might be the case that you also would benefit from using a top-down approach as well. So a bottom-up approach is when we start with the body and we try to help our nervous system feel calmer and feel more grounded and better through targeting the body, which in turn, the idea is that it will also calm the brain and calm our mind and our thinking and make us feel better that way. A top-down approach is basically doing the opposite. So looking at our thoughts or looking at our brain, our thinking pattern, our ideas, and approaching that first in the hope that that is going to help our body relax and our nervous system calm down. So our bodies and our minds are very connected, and so using both of these approaches could be a good idea because you're coming from it at every angle in that case. The thing that helped me most was doing parts work, and this is something I'm still doing and I'm still working on, and it's definitely not something that you can change you overnight. It's something you need to work on, but it's learning to self-regulate by having a self within you that is grounded, that is safe, that is secure, that is like a parent or a compassionate energy or being who can be there for other parts of you that don't feel safe, that feel anxious, that feel that they need to do a lot or achieve a lot or need to shut the world out or need to procrastinate. So doing parts work involves allowing these parts to express themselves, allowing them to explain why they do what they do, and bringing an understanding and compassionate energy towards those parts of you. And so according to IFS theory, one of the reasons why bottom-up approaches might not work all of the time would be because maybe you have a part that doesn't want to relax, or that doesn't feel seen, doesn't feel heard, doesn't feel understood. And essentially by meditating or by doing breathing exercises, you might be trying to feel relaxed or trying to change your state without acknowledging that there's a part of you that has a very good reason to feel on edge, or to feel anxious, or to feel depressed, or to feel wired and tired, or whatever it might be. That part may need to express itself, and for you to be genuinely interested and understanding and compassionate towards that part, for that part to be able to relax, or for the meditation to be more effective. And another top-down approach, which I think is related to this, is just being very real with yourself about what's going on. So the list that I went through in the last video, a lot of the things I mentioned involve kind of repressing or avoiding how we are feeling or what we're thinking. And sometimes it's like trying to cope by shutting the world out and not facing the issues that you're experiencing, or trying to cope by wanting to fix, wanting to research, wanting to be busy, or by focusing on others more than ourselves. These are all really good ways of not being with ourselves and how we feel. And it can be really difficult to be with yourself and to be with how you feel and the truth of your situation, or the truth of how parts of you feel in that situation. That's why lots of people have different coping mechanisms. That's why it's really common to try and avoid things that are going on. But if you can face it and just allow yourself to notice what's challenging about the situation that you're in, what the issue really is, and it might be just writing down in a bullet point format what your truth is right now. Is it that you do feel like you're not coping? Is it that you are really frustrated with being unwell for such a long time? Is it that you are feeling really unsafe and anxious in the situation that you're in? And so noticing as well as this, being real with like what stressors are in your life right now is important. Another thing that can be important is to reflect on the past. And in the past, did you cope in this way when you were a child or in another situation in your life? And if you did cope by being in a survival mode, why was it that you learned to cope like that? How was it helping you back then? Is there a pattern where you're getting stuck in a cycle of being in survival mode because being in survival mode is generating more anxiety and stress and dysregulation, which is keeping you in survival mode? And is there some type of cycle or pattern for you that's reoccurring either recently or since you were younger? And sometimes we can't have full perspective on ourselves in this sense, and it's helpful to have a therapist or a coach or someone who has some outside perspective on what might be keeping you stuck in survival mode. Another thing that can be helpful in terms of top-down approaches would be journaling. So writing about things that are affecting you at the moment, things that have affected you in the past, but just allowing yourself to feel the emotions that are going on, and to do that in a way where you feel as though you can write anything. So for some people, journaling is a little bit triggering. They fear that someone else would read what they've written. And if that's you, then maybe journaling isn't for you and you need to do it some other way. Or you need to make sure that whatever you write, you're able to delete straight away if it's on a laptop, or throw it away or rip it up or put it in a fire. But from my experience in terms of trying to shift my nervous system from a state of survival mode to a more regulated state, I think one of the most important things for me was being really honest with how I was feeling and how I was coping and things that are going on for me. And it might be different for you. It might be that a bottom-up approach where you're using breathing exercises and meditation are enough. So there may be other things that you find helpful, and feel free to comment below if there's something that you do on a regular basis that you think is helping you get out of survival mode and get into a more safe, connected, grounded space. So if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. And if you'd like to join the Facebook group, there's a link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.